So Dell's XPS 13 Plus is finally in the studio. This is Dell's newly designed flagship ultrabook product, but I have to say they've made some unusual design decisions. So let's take a look and see if they pay off. So starting with the specs, this little beast that I've got here is fitted with the new 12th gen i5 CPU with 12 cores and it runs at 28 watts. Now I've got the base model, so it only has 8GB of DDR5 RAM, it's got a 512GB Gen 4 SSD, and it's got a 1920 by 1200 13-inch panel. Now this is going to set you back an eye-watering £1,300 in the UK or $1,400 in America. So picking this thing up, and man it's tiny. It feels like I'm holding an iPad, but it's still incredibly solid, and it's a premium device made from an all-aluminium chassis. It's available in either the platinum version that I've got here or a darker graphite version. So this leads me to the first odd decision, and that's the ports, or should I say lack of them. We've got on the left side a Thunderbolt 4 port, and on the right side a Thunderbolt 4 port, and that's it. There's not even a headphone jack. Now Dell do provide a USB-A to USB-C adapter in the box, so that's very handy if you want to plug in a mouse or an old hard drive. And Dell should provide you with a USB-C to headphone adapter, as seen in the box here. But unfortunately, Dell didn't include one with mine. Looking at you, Dell. Now if you're somebody who rarely plugs in peripherals, or you use a dock on your day-to-day use with your laptop, this is going to be pretty irrelevant to you. But only having two ports is going to be a real juggle. Between the power adapter, your headphones, and any of your devices you want to plug in, you're going to be moving them around just to get them plugged into this device. Opening up the laptop is the usual XPS one-handed affair, and you're greeted to the beautiful 13-inch 16x10 1920 by 1200p panel. Now it's a glossy screen, but it gets impressively bright at 500 nits, so you can certainly use this in a bright room without too much glare. Now the laptop's also available with either a touchscreen version with this 1200p panel or a 4K Plus version in either touch or non-touch. But in all honesty, I do recommend that you save the cash and just get the base 1200p panel. This screen looks incredible and has been an absolute joy to use on this 13-inch panel. Plus by getting this 1200p panel, it's going to increase your battery life because going with that 4K Plus is going to eat into the battery. And despite these slim bezels on this laptop, above the screen we do have the webcam and it looks and sounds like this. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Dell XPS 13 Plus. And it also includes Windows Hello facial recognition, which is by far my favourite way of logging into a laptop. But in case you don't want the actual laptop looking at your face, there's also a power button with built-in fingerprint reader at the top of the keyboard. And talking of the keyboard, Dell have moved away from the traditional XPS keyboard and given us this unusual keyboard with no spacing between the keys. But fortunately it's lovely to type on with great feedback and crisp tactile response to the actual keys themselves and a great layout. Now my one gripe with the keyboard on this model is the fact that it has white backlight with light coloured keys, and that can make it difficult to see some of these characters in a lit room. Now there is obviously only a problem if you buy this platinum version, so I do recommend for most people, if that's something that does bother you, make sure you get the graphite which has the black keys and you'll have no problems with the white backlight. So on to my second odd Dell design decision. Above the keyboard you'll notice we've got this capacitive touch bar. It's like Dell have found the worst thing Apple ever created in the touch bar, copied it, but actually made it worse. In Dell's version, we've got this capacitive touch bar which can either be function keys or the media keys, and that's it. There's no haptic feedback, and it's always lit. So despite the fact that after a preset amount of time by the user, the keyboard will turn itself off, this capacitive touch bar at the top is always on, and that I find can be a bit distracting if you're using this laptop for watching movies. And as we move down to the actual touchpad, this is another Dell classic. You can see here, there's just one piece across the bottom, this like glass section here. And I wondered to myself when I ordered this, is this entire section a touchpad where you can press anywhere and it'll actually use as a touchpad? But no, the touchpad is in the usual place on a laptop such as this, but you have to move your finger around until you find it. So it was a bit of an odd design choice to me. Fortunately, it is an actual haptic touchpad which works incredibly well, but with a glass surface that you can literally click anywhere, just like an Apple Force Touch trackpad. Gestures and tracking is absolutely flawless and it's been an absolute joy to use. You just can't see where it is. And lastly, this laptop has a 4-speaker system with 2 speakers firing downwards and 2 firing up. For a small, compact 13-inch laptop, it sounds really great, but it's not quite up there with some of your best MacBooks. Here's a sample of how it sounds. Speaker test at 80% volume. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Removing the base plate to get to the internals is very easy. You're just removing a few screws and it just pulls straight off. The RAM and the Wi-Fi card is soldered onto the actual motherboard, but the RAM can be upgraded to 32 gigabytes of DDR5 when you're ordering the laptop. So do make sure you're ordering the amount of RAM that you need when you purchase it. Fortunately though, the Gen 4 SSD is upgradable, so I can remove this 512GB SSD and go anywhere up to 2TB in this laptop. And lastly, you can see we've got the traditional heatsink with twin fans to expel the waste hot air from this actual CPU, which leads us neatly onto how this laptop actually performs. And on the CPU side, it's pretty fantastic. This is just the i5 with 12 cores. You can also get the i7 with 14 cores. But in actuality, this i5 has been running amazingly. It can sustain up to 28 watts, giving an incredible Cinebench R23 score of over 9,000 points, which for a tiny little 13 laptop like this is truly amazing. We've got similar great scores in Geekbench 5 single and multi-core scores. But unfortunately that leads me to the GPU section of these benchmarks. And the Intel Iris graphics that come on board this CPU is the same graphics they've been using now for a few years. And this actual laptop scores exactly the same in the graphics department as my old Surface Pro 7 Plus from over 2 years ago. Now if you're only using this laptop for work, it will cut through most light tasks. Light 3D work such as Blender or Photoshop or coding and maybe sort of Visual Studio are absolutely flawless on this machine, and it can even cope with light gaming. And with the improved 28-watt CPU, eSport titles run flawlessly on this machine. But don't expect to be playing Warzone or maybe doing video editing on this tiny compact little laptop. Now of course if that's something you really did want to do, you could use one of the Thunderbolt 4 ports and buy an eGPU. And with that in mind, I have ordered an eGPU and I have it on the way, so make sure you're subscribed if you'd like to see that video that will be coming soon. Fan noise and heat management is impressive in this machine, and Dell have provided multiple profiles that will adjust the actual fan noise and the performance based on your needs. Now we ran all our benchmarks and the gaming on the ultra performance mode, and the external temperatures remain comfortable throughout, even on extended gaming sessions. Working on battery is also a pleasure, and it feels just as snappy as if you're plugged in. And the benchmarks also prove that, showing that they're almost the same on mains as they are on battery. And that seems to be the same with most of the other Intel laptops that we've been testing with these new 12th gen CPUs. And the battery life is also reasonable at just under 9 hours on a usual YouTube streaming test over Wi-Fi at 200 nits of brightness. Now bear in mind this is the 1200p panel. If you buy that 4K Plus panel, the battery life will be significantly worse. So all in all, is this laptop worth a buy? Well, despite some really odd design choices, such as this capacitive touch bar and the horrible amount of ports, I find myself absolutely loving using this laptop. And it's mostly down to this incredible screen. The brightness, the colour, the vibrancy, it's just such a lovely screen. And along with that, we've got such a fantastic compact and light package with a great keyboard. It means I can just chuck it anywhere and get all my work done. But my biggest gripe with this laptop has nothing to do with Dell and everything to do with Intel, and that is the Iris graphics in this actual CPU. I was really hoping with these 12th gen processors that Intel would have put in their new ARC graphics. And when they add these ARC graphics to the newer processors, I think this machine would really fly and would be a great all-round machine for most people. But with those old Iris graphics in there, I find this really hard to recommend, especially if your laptop's only a year or two old. So there we go. What do you think of this laptop? Do you think it's worth the incredibly high price of £1,300 or $1,400? Pop your comments down below and I will get back to you. And as always, thank you for watching.